Welcome to the Miraculous Grace Christian Counseling Temperament Theory Series. Today we'll talk about what is temperament. Temperament, in simple terms, is the inborn, not the genetic, such as brown hair, blue eyes, etc., part of man that determines how we react to people, places, and things. In short, it is how we interact with our environment and the world around us. Temperament pinpoints our perception of ourselves and the perception that people have of us who love us. It is the determining factor in how well we handle the stresses and everyday pressures of life. According to many secular psychologists, people are born as blank slates, and that's called tabula rasa. And this school of thought originated with St. Thomas Aquinas back in the 13th century and was developed further by John Locke and capitalized on by Sigmund Freud. The Neo-Freudians believe that the environment and the developmental stages are what determines our behavior. Although there are effects from the environment and, obviously, the developmental stages, you cannot convince the parent of a newborn baby that their child is born a blank slate and has no unique behavior patterns. Some babies will coo sweetly, sleep long hours, and cry only when wet or hungry. There are others who will awaken every couple of hours, scream at the top of their lungs, and resist any efforts to be quieted. Then there are newborns who will cuddle and laugh for any adult who holds them, and there are some who are comfortable with no one but their mothers or their fathers. This is the observable proof of temperament. If children were born blank, you could see this when you look into a hospital nursery because the babies would all behave in the same way. Yet, as we know, each infant is different. Many people carry a hidden resentment toward God for not designing them the way that they would have designed themselves. He did it this way because he wants to develop within each of us a Christ-like character so that we can experience life abundantly. It is foolish to think we are wiser than God. David wrote in Psalm 139, verses 13 through 16, "For you created my inmost being. You knit me together in my mother's womb. I praise you because I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Your works are wonderful. I know that full well. My frame was not hidden from you when I was made in the secret place. When I was woven together in the depths of the earth, your eyes saw my unformed body. All the days ordained for me were written in your book before one of them came to be." Through divine inspiration, although David knew nothing about DNA or RNA, David knew that before we were born, God designed us. While our bodies were being differentiated within our mother's womb, each inward part was designed exactly as God intended, including both our strengths and our weaknesses. We have the responsibility of living up to our potential, correcting any correctable defects. Our self-worth, as well as our Christian witness, will benefit from praising God for designing us the way we are. What are the building blocks? Well, we developed at National Christian Counselors Association, and this was Dr. Arno and his wife, Dr. Phyllis Arno, a simple, unique way to break down the complex subject of the inner man, which you will find helpful. It is called the building blocks. The first building block for understanding human behavior is God created. This is called our temperament. When we are conceived, our unique temperament is placed within us by the order of God. The second building block for understanding human behavior is that we are man-environment affected. This is called our character. At birth, we begin interacting with our environment, and our environment interacts with us. The environment is everything we see, hear, smell, feel, and learn. These perceptions are forever locked into our brain, and they slightly mold or alter our temperament, thereby forming character. That is, temperament times environment equals character. The third building block for understanding human behavior is that we are self-selected. This is called our personality, as in expressed in a way we perceive how we must behave to survive in the world in which we live. This may or may not be part of our temperament or character. Temperament determines how much love and affection we need. For example, some babies are born with the need for very little stroking and holding. That need is placed within them by God. The character of others is formed in an environment where the parents hold and stroke them. These children will want to be stroked excuse me, and held slightly more than their temperament shows. This increased need was placed within them by their parents, or as we say, it is man-environment affected. This is what we call learned behavior. If at some point in the child's life, he or she attempts to hold or stroke another person and is rejected, he or she will pull back and refrain from expressing love. The need to behave like this is self-selected, and it's called personality. There's one major problem with personality, though. It is a mask we wear for the world, and, as with any other mask, it cannot be worn for very long. Eventually, the person must revert back to temperament and character for actions and reactions of behavior, and this explains why a person acts differently at home than they do in public. So in order to understand others, we must gain insight into the God-created part of their behavior, which is their temperament. The understanding of temperament gives us a special knowledge of the inner workings of ourselves and others. It helps identify the pressures that we as humans feel, which are resulting from, 1, the world in which we live, and 2, our weaknesses or desires. The understanding of temperament also helps us develop a stronger relationship with God by showing us how to let God work in our lives and how to interact with God in ways that are beneficial to us. There are parts of man that are closely related and cannot be separated. Each is a determining factor in man's behavior. And they are the physical, spiritual, and emotional areas of mankind, or as we know them, the mind, the soul, and the body. Physical illness can affect our behavior, as can spiritual darkness and emotional illness. Emotional illness, eating, sleeping, and drinking habits, susceptibility to alcoholism, drug addiction, and sexual abuse are determined in the temperament. Temperament is also a determining factor in finding a career that is most comfortable for us, finding hobbies that will bring us the most satisfaction and enjoyment, how we make decisions and take on responsibilities, how dependent or independent we are, and our spiritual development. Happiness in marriage is greatly dependent on how well each spouse understands his or her partner's temperament and how willing he or she is to meet a partner's temperament needs. Most temperament researchers and writers have the simplistic view that an individual is one temperament. That is, he's a melancholy or she is a choleric. We will teach you that it is seldom true. Humans are very complex individuals, both biologically and emotionally. For example, an individual may be a melancholy in social interaction, which we call inclusion. A sanguine in the decision-making area of control, and a phlegmatic in a deeper relationships that we call affection. Thank you for taking the time to listen to this temperament theory series on what is temperament.